My name is Susie Tran. I'm 31, and I make a living turning other people's heartbreak into something that sounds beautiful. I'm a sound engineer at a tiny indie studio 2 floors above a ramen shop, the kind of place where you can hear the soup pots whisper through the floor during quiet takes. It isn't glamorous, but it's mine. Or it was, until I realized I had slowly become a prop in someone else's show. I used to think Ethan and I were two halves of a careful duet. He was the bright one, Ethan Brooks, 32, camera-ready smile, a lifestyle creator who could make an unmade bed look like a brand partnership. I loved his appetite for light. I loved that he believed a well-plated breakfast could heal a bad mood. He said I grounded him. I said he lifted me. People clapped for us in comments. We clapped for each other in private, mostly. We'd been living together in his apartment for 6 months when it happened. Rent-controlled miracle with windows that made even ordinary dust look cinematic. He'd found it years before my name ever brushed his captions. I paid my share, stacked neatly labeled cables in a plastic bin in the corner, and called it home because he called it ours. The lease stayed in his name. That never mattered, until it did. It was a Wednesday, the kind of gray that makes the city feel like it's holding its breath. I ate my lunch at the studio desk, headphones around my neck, scrolling through my For You page with the same guilt you feel eating dessert before dinner. I don't usually follow Ethan's content closely, not because I don't care, because he told me once, half joking, that I wasn't the demo, and I believed him. But the algorithm is nosy. It knows the shape of our furniture. The video appeared like a joke I wasn't in on. Our living room, his living room, washed in late afternoon sun. Ethan, lip-syncing to a trending audio about settling for now, dancing through the frame with a boyish grin that people pay attention to. For a second, I smiled too. I recognized the lamp we argued about, the couch that squeaked like a violin with bad rosin, the plant he said I was overwatering. Then I saw me, blurry, back right, at my little desk, shoulders forward, mixing a vocal. My hand lifted to solo a track. I know the gesture because it's mine. He'd filmed while I was in the room, looped the joke over my silhouette, placed me behind the glass without the courtesy of a cue. The caption landed like a slap, dressed as a wink. Dating down builds character. Trust the process. I didn't breathe. The comments did. Girl, you're hilarious for this. Invest now, harvest later. He's cute, but career-wise, you'll outgrow him. He replied to some. Gotta start somewhere. Apartment's mine anyway, lol. Potential is hot, right? I scrolled and scrolled until the phone grew heavy. The ramen pots hummed below. In my headphones, a metronome clicked, an engineer's heartbeat. I watched the video again, just to be sure I hadn't hallucinated it, and each time the same cold clarity spread. He had taken our private room, our quiet work, my unperformed self, and turned it into a costume for his story about levels. People always say humiliation is loud. They're wrong. It's quiet. It's a room where every sound has been muted except the one you never wanted to hear. My thumb hovered over his name. I didn't press. Words felt small next to all those laughing faces and bright emojis, next to the easy way his fingers had typed, "Apartment's mine anyway." I put my phone face down and slipped the headphones back on. On the screen, a waveform opened like a mouth. The artist in the booth, 22, eyes still soft, was recording a breakup song. "Can we go again?" she asked through the talkback. "Of course," I said, and my voice was steady, from the top. We built something honest in that little room. Her voice ragged in all the right places, my hands gentle on the faders. I squeezed pain into clarity, calibrated shame into air. When we finished, the singer cried in relief, the kind you feel when you've finally said the thing you were afraid to say. I understood more than she knew. On the drive home, the city glided past like a long, unblinking eye. I told myself I should wait, that I owed Ethan a conversation, that public mistakes deserved private compassion. But even the traffic lights seemed to be shaking their heads. Don't bargain with the obvious. When I opened the door, the ring light burned against the room like a moon that had forgotten to be kind. Ethan was mid-take, telling his followers about a blender he swore had changed his mornings. He smiled when he saw me, tapped the screen to pause. "Hey babe, tie tonight?" he asked, easy as ever, as if my heart hadn't been posted for strangers to grade. "Sure," I said, and put my bag down. My voice sounded normal. How polite, I thought, to be ordinary when you're bleeding. He kissed my cheek, tasted like peppermint and performance. Give me 10. Need to nail this last bit. I walked to the bedroom and slid a suitcase from under the bed. Not the big one, the medium, the one you can mistake for a rehearsal if things don't go the way you think. I packed with the meticulous care of someone mixing an album. Clothes I loved, toiletries, the files I couldn't replace, a pouch of thumb drives, passports, a little tin holding 2 rings from a flea market. I left every gift he ever bought me, every framed photo of us, the mug he said made my eyes look greener. I took only what belonged to me. Grief kept the list honest. From the living room, a warm-up laugh, the shrug he does before pretending imperfections are charming. It's easy to be charming when the worst thing you've done is still getting likes. I came out rolling the suitcase. He was scrolling through takes, selecting the best version of himself. He glanced up, smile line ready, then stalled. "What's with the luggage?" I held up my phone and opened his video. I didn't add words. I trusted them to arrive alone. The audio played for a beat, tinny in the quiet room, and even he winced hearing it aloud. "Susie," he said, soft, the way people talk to wild animals. It's just content. You know that. People expect a persona. It's not who you really are," I finished. "Right." He set the phone down, palms up, pleading. "It's a trend. Everyone exaggerates. I'll take it down." "You filmed me without asking," I said. The suitcase handle felt like an instrument neck in my hand. "You called me down in your home and cast my work as a punchline, and then you laughed with them." "It's performance," he insisted louder now. "It's not real life." "It's real enough to hurt," I said, "and real enough to show me what you think is allowed." He rubbed his jaw, a tail brushed by stress. "You're going to walk out over a 30-second joke?" "Our relationship ended when I realized I'm just a backdrop," I said. My voice surprised me. No tremor, no quake. "I'm leaving now because I'd like to go while I still recognize myself." "Where will you go?" he asked, almost angry. "This is your place, too." "It's your lease," I said gently, handing his own caption back to him. "You'll be fine without my half." A hollow laugh cracked out of him. "This is insane." The ring light stood there, patient, waiting to be needed. I thought of all the times he'd told me he believed in my talent, that my ear was magic, that my mixes gave songs a spine. I wondered which of those compliments were for me and which were for the camera. "I hope the engagement was worth it," I said, "and it wasn't cruel. It was honest. And I hope someday you figure out the difference between a scene and a life." Something flickered in his eyes then, regret or calculation, I couldn't tell. He started to say my name, but I was already moving, wheels whispering across the rug. The door felt heavy and kind. In the hallway, the air smelled of someone else's dinner and floor cleaner. My phone buzzed. "Ethan again, already building a new narrative in our chat thread. We need to talk. You're being dramatic. I'll delete it. Come back and we'll fix this. Please." I texted exactly once. "I deserve to be a person, not a plot device. Please don't contact me." Then I blocked him, the way you cut a frequency that won't stop feeding back. Outside, the city was raining lightly, an engineer's dream, soft noise to cover the click of a heart resetting. I pulled the suitcase through puddles and felt something fragile but unmistakable. Space. The kind you can sing in. At Dana's place, she opened the door without asking questions and wrapped me in a hug that said everything better than words. "Stay as long as you need," she murmured. I nodded, dropped the handle, let the suitcase exhale into the corner. We sat on her couch with tea that went cold, untouched. When I finally told her, she didn't gasp or curse him or light a match. She just listened, then said, "You did the right thing." It landed like a note, perfectly in tune. Later, in her guest room, the kind with a too-firm pillow and a window that gossiped with the rain, I lay awake, watching light smudge across the ceiling. I thought of the girl in my booth earlier, the way her voice cracked open on the bridge. I thought of the waveform on my screen and how it looked like a coastline. Jagged, sure, honest. I thought of Ethan's video and all the eyes that would wake up tomorrow to laugh at a person they didn't know. The thing about leaving quietly is people think nothing happened. But quiet is its own microphone. It picks up what the big mics miss. The breath before a note. The truth between lines. Somewhere inside the city, a train wailed. Somewhere inside me, something steadied. I didn't know yet that the track I mixed that afternoon would become a key. I didn't know that doors on the other side of the map were already unlocking my name. All I knew was this: I would not be the background of my own life again. I slept. The rain kept time, and for the first time in months, the metronome was mine. When I woke up at Dana's apartment, the first thing I felt was silence. Not the kind that weighs heavy, but the kind that feels clean, like a room has been aired out after too many months of pretending nothing's wrong. Dana had already gone to work, but she'd left a note on the counter beside a mug and a folded towel. "Breakfast is in the fridge. Don't check his socials." Of course, I did anyway. Ethan's TikTok had doubled in views overnight. 70,000 strangers laughing, dissecting, quoting, duetting. His name trended locally. Had dating down builds character. A phrase I hadn't realized would become the tagline of my heartbreak. His face smiled from the thumbnail, confident and unbothered. I thought about the caption. Dating down builds character. It wasn't just a joke, it was a thesis, and I had been the proof. For a few seconds, anger tried to crawl up my throat, but I swallowed it. I'd given Ethan 2 years of attention. He wasn't getting one more minute of my reaction. So I showered, made coffee, and went to work. The studio. At the studio, Hector raised an eyebrow when he saw me. "You look like you slept in a song." I forced a smile. Rough night. He didn't push. That was Hector's gift. He let silence do the heavy lifting. "You've got the Martinelli project today," he said, handing me the schedule. "Kid writes breakup songs like it's cardio. Thought you'd appreciate the irony." I almost laughed. Almost. The artist that afternoon, a 22-year-old named Jace Martinelli, stumbled into the booth with a notebook full of grief and a voice that cracked like old vinyl. I helped him through, take after take, adjusting mics, coaxing emotion, layering harmonies. It was technical, yes, but also intimate, like midwifing someone's truth. Between takes, he told me, "This one's about someone who made me feel small." "Those are the hardest ones to let go of," I said. He nodded, eyes glassy. "Yeah, but when the song's done, it's like you finally said what needed to be said." That line stuck to me. We worked until the sun set. The song, tentatively titled "What You Said," was raw, imperfect, but beautiful. When we played back the mix, I felt something I hadn't felt since before Ethan's video. Pride. Not in him, in me. The messages. When I finally checked my phone that night, Ethan had texted 12 times. "Ethan, you left over a joke? Ethan, you're being ridiculous. Ethan, we need to talk. Ethan, fine. If you want to make me the villain, go ahead. Ethan, please, Sue, I'm sorry. I'll delete it. Ethan, can we just fix this privately? Ethan, I love you." The progression was predictable. Denial, anger, bargaining, guilt, nostalgia. The 5 stages of damage control. I didn't respond. I blocked his number and archived the thread. Later, as I was labeling audio files, Dana peeked into the studio. "You okay?" she asked softly. "Working helps," I said. She smiled knowingly. "Of course it does. You turn pain into playlists." The world keeps scrolling. 3 days passed. The city moved on. Algorithms did not. Ethan's video plateaued around 600K views before comments shifted. A few creators stitched it, calling it tone-deaf and weirdly cruel. Someone even slowed down the footage, circling my blurred figure in the background. "Imagine mocking your girlfriend while she's literally working," one girl said in her reaction clip. "This isn't funny, it's mean." The irony didn't make me happy, just hollow. Meanwhile, at the studio, Jace's song started gaining traction. He'd posted a snippet on Instagram, tagged me and the studio, and suddenly the local scene noticed. Likes turned into messages, messages into calls. Hector grinned like a proud uncle. "You made him sound like heartbreak in surround sound," he said. "That's a gift." Maybe it was, or maybe it was just the result of someone who knew what being broken felt like. The call from Stonebridge. A week after I left Ethan, Hector called me into his office. The walls were covered in gold-tinted posters from indie bands that had passed through before they got famous. It smelled like coffee and ambition. "I got an email this morning," he said, tapping his keyboard. "Stonebridge Records, they heard Jace's track." I blinked. "The label in Seattle?" "The very one. They want you on a 6-month contract, a trial run working with their new artists." My breath caught. Stonebridge wasn't massive, but it was real, legit. The kind of place that could turn a freelance engineer into a name. "They said your mix had something raw and cinematic. Their words, not mine." He smiled. "I told you heartbreak sells." I tried to joke, but my throat tightened. "So, they want me to move?" "For now, yeah, temporary. But it's a door, Susie. You've earned it." The goodbye that didn't need words. That night, I went back to Ethan's apartment, not to see him, but to collect what was mine. Dana came with me, just in case. He wasn't home, which made it easier. The place looked the same, but felt smaller, like a set after the cameras stopped rolling. I packed quietly, taking my studio gear, notebooks, the old headphones I'd saved for years. On the wall, one of our framed photos was missing, probably already deleted from his feed. Dana found it strange. He hasn't replaced anything yet, like he's waiting for a reshoot. Let him, I said. He's good at pretending. As we left, I noticed the light ring still standing in the corner, unplugged. I almost felt sorry for it. It was a symbol of what he valued most: attention. Without an audience, even light feels pointless. The shift. By the end of that week, I signed the contract with Stonebridge. Start date, 2 weeks. That night, Hector and Dana took me out for drinks. New beginnings, Hector toasted. Better soundtracks, Dana added. I smiled, for real this time. Not the polite smile I'd worn in photos, but the kind that felt earned. Before bed, I scrolled through my feed one last time. Ethan's profile looked different. He had deleted that video. The apology post that replaced it read, "Sometimes we hurt people we love while trying to make strangers laugh. I'm learning." The comments were split between support and skepticism. I didn't add mine. I closed the app and opened my DAW instead. The screen glowed blue as I started a new project file. Its title, Unmixed Feelings. For the first time since the breakup, the waveform didn't look jagged. It looked like forward motion. Outside, the rain started again, steady and low, the kind of rhythm you could build a new life to. And I promised myself, no more being the background noise in someone else's story. Because the quiet wasn't punishment anymore. It was freedom. When I landed in Seattle, it was raining. The kind of steady, unhurried rain that makes everything look like it's been rinsed clean. The cab ride from the airport to the studio was a blur of wet lights and possibility. I hadn't started over since my 20s. Back then, it had felt like escape. This time, it felt like reclamation. Stonebridge Records sat in an old warehouse turned creative hub, exposed brick, plants in mismatched pots, the faint smell of burnt espresso, and ambition. My first morning there, the senior engineer, Nora, handed me a pass and said, "Don't let the neon signs fool you. Everyone here is half terrified, half obsessed." I smiled. Perfect. That's my baseline. I knew frequency. The work was relentless, 12-hour days balancing perfection and chaos. But I thrived in it. The studio wasn't about looks or content. It was about sound. You couldn't filter a frequency or fake a mix. Every take mattered. Every silence was intentional. The first project they gave me was with a band called The Fables, a group of 20-somethings with big dreams and bigger egos. They wanted their debut single to sound like heartbreak in Technicolor. I spent 3 nights straight adjusting reverbs, layering harmonies, shaping the emotional contour. When Nora stopped by to check, she listened for a minute, then nodded. "You've got the emotional math right. Keep that." Those words stayed with me. The emotional math. It was what I'd been doing my whole life, translating feelings into something you could hear. The Ripple. 3 weeks in, Jace Martinelli's song, the one I'd mixed before leaving, exploded. It got picked up by a playlist, then a local radio station, then 2. Jace tagged me in every post. Mixed by the one and only at Susie Transound, she made this heartbreak sing. The comments were kind, enthusiastic, real. For the first time, my name meant something outside Ethan's shadow. I wasn't someone's +1 or background character. I was an artist in my own right. The studio started getting inquiries. A few artists specifically requested to work with me. Nora teased, "Careful, Tran, you'll be too famous for us soon." I laughed, but inside, something tender uncurled, the quiet satisfaction of being seen for the right reasons. Meanwhile, back home, one evening, during a rare break, I got a message from Lila, a mutual friend who still followed Ethan. "Hey, just a heads up, he's been going through it. Deleted a bunch of videos. Sponsors dropped him after that dating down thing went viral in the worst way. He's posting these vague captions about cancel culture and redemption arcs." I read it twice, then put the phone face down. Not out of malice, just disinterest. His downfall wasn't my story to follow anymore. But later that night, curiosity got the better of me. I searched his name. His follower count had dropped. His engagement tanked. A few larger creators had stitched his post, using it as an example of public humiliation disguised as humor. He'd deleted the original video, but screenshots lived forever. The comments under his newer posts were polite but cold. People remembered. That should have made me happy. It didn't. If anything, it made me sad. Not for him, but for how easy it was for the internet to turn a lesson into spectacle. He'd turned me into content. Now the world had done the same to him. Collecting what's mine. A month after moving, I flew back to the city briefly to finalize a few loose ends, mostly legal, some personal. I still had equipment at Hector's studio, and I wanted to thank him properly before I left for good. He hugged me at the door. You're glowing. Seattle agrees with you. It's the caffeine and trauma, I joked. As we packed the last of my cables, Hector lowered his voice. Ethan came by last week. I froze. What? He didn't cause trouble, just asked if you were okay, said he regretted everything. I told him I didn't know and that he should let you move on. I exhaled slowly. Thank you. You want me to tell him anything if he comes back? No. I paused, then added, actually, yeah. Tell him the mix turned out perfect. Hector grinned. That's my girl. A small victory. Before heading back to the airport, I met up with Dana one last time. We sat in our usual cafe, the one with mismatched chairs and cinnamon and everything. She pushed a tiny cupcake across the table toward me. What's this for? Your first big label contract, and the fact that you didn't key his car, which shows growth. I laughed. Really laughed. For the first time in months. When she asked if I'd heard from Ethan, I told her no, and that I hoped it stayed that way. She nodded. You don't need revenge. You got evolution. That night, on the plane back to Seattle, I looked out over the city lights, thinking how every breakup feels like the end until it quietly turns into a beginning. I didn't know it yet, but the universe was about to hand me a full circle moment, the kind you can't script, only earn. The callback. 2 weeks later, I got an email from Stonebridge's creative director asking if I'd be open to co-engineering a new EP. The artist's name hit me like static. Ethan Brooks. Apparently, he'd pivoted to music after his influencer crash. A small PR label had signed him, and Stonebridge was collaborating for the production. I stared at the email for a long time, my stomach turned, not from fear, but from the surreal poetry of it all. Nora looked over my shoulder. You okay? I smiled faintly. Yeah, just poetic irony. She shrugged. You in? I thought for a moment. Then I typed, happy to assist, strictly professional. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is showing up as the version of yourself they never thought you'd become. And I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. When the email came through, I was alone in the mixing room, balancing the final master for a new artist. The session clock blinked 1:07 a.m. The city outside was asleep. The rain wasn't. Seattle's lullaby. Subject line, please read from Ethan. I froze. Not because I still loved him. That version of me had burned away, but because seeing his name again felt like finding an old scar under a new tattoo, faint, but still there. I told myself not to open it. I'd built peace from the quiet, but curiosity is the ghost of every heartbreak. It knocks softly, pretending it's closure. So I clicked. From Ethan Brooks. Subject, please read from Ethan. Susie, I know I don't deserve your time, but I need to say this. What I did was cruel. I thought I was being funny, clever, chasing engagement like it was oxygen. I didn't realize until too late that I had used you, that I'd turned something real into a performance. After you left, things fell apart. Brand deals, followers, the people I thought were friends, gone overnight. And honestly, I deserved it. But I've been working on music now, real music. No filters, no ring lights. It's raw, and it's the first thing I've done that feels honest. I wanted you to know that I never stopped believing in your talent. You were always the one with real vision. I'm proud of what you've achieved. I hope you're happy. I miss you, I'm sorry. Ethan. I read it 3 times. Each line sounded rehearsed, like a new brand of sincerity. He'd always known how to compose emotion, how to string words together in the right order to sound human. But what struck me most was the word honest. Honest people don't need to announce that they've become one. Still, part of me, the quieter, wounded part, wanted to believe him. To believe that he'd finally looked in a mirror that didn't flatter him. The meeting. A week later, Nora walked into the studio with a clipboard and a grin. Guess who's joining us for pre-production on the new project? I looked up, pretending I didn't already know. Who? Ethan Brooks, ring any bells? I laughed softly, mostly at the universe's dark humor. Yeah, a few. She gave me a curious look. You two know each other? Used to, I said. But it's fine. I can handle it. The session. When Ethan walked into Stonebridge 2 days later, he looked smaller. Not physically, but in the way people do when life has finally stopped applauding. The once perfect haircut was overgrown, the confidence dimmed into something cautious. He froze when he saw me behind the console. "Susie?" "Hi, Ethan," I said evenly. "Welcome to Stonebridge." His expression flickered between shock, guilt, and something close to admiration. "I didn't know you worked here." "I didn't know you made music," I replied. Nora, oblivious to the history, clapped her hands. "Perfect. You two already know each other. This'll be smooth." He laughed awkwardly. "Yeah, smooth." The recording. Over the next few hours, I did what I always do. Focus, calibrate, disappear into the work. Ethan's voice wasn't bad, just untrained. The lyrics were heavy-handed, clearly autobiographical, apologies wrapped in metaphors, regret disguised as redemption. I built a world out of pixels and watched the people fade. I learned that validation doesn't love you when you stay. The irony wasn't lost on me. At one point, he glanced through the glass window at me, waiting for a reaction. I gave him none, just a thumbs up for another take. During break, he approached quietly. "I meant what I wrote in the email. I'm sorry." I nodded. "Good, you should be." He blinked, surprised by the calmness. "You really won't say anything else?" "There's nothing left to say, Ethan. You already turned our story into content once. I'm not giving you a sequel." He swallowed hard, then whispered, "You've changed." "I grew," I said. "You should try it." The turning point. By the end of the week, the song was done. When Stonebridge's A&R team heard the final mix, they praised the production. "Whoever engineered this," one exec said, "gave his voice emotion it didn't naturally have." I didn't correct them. Some truths don't need explaining. After the session, Ethan lingered while the rest of the team packed up. "You made it sound better than it is," he said quietly. I shrugged. "That's what engineers do." He smiled faintly. "I really hope you believe me when I say I'm proud of you." "I don't need your belief," I replied. "I have my own." He nodded, looking away. "Fair." Then he left. No dramatic apology, no desperate plea, just silence, the kind that finally sounded sincere. The reflection. That night, I walked home through the drizzle, headphones on, playing the final mix of his song. Not because I wanted to hear his voice, but because I wanted to hear mine, the invisible hand shaping something broken into beauty. The irony struck me again. Ethan had once filmed me in the background of his content. Now, my fingerprints were quietly embedded in his redemption track. Except this time, I wasn't invisible. A few days later, he sent one final message. Short, unpolished, real. "You didn't have to help me sound good, but you did. Thank you, for the lesson and the mercy." I replied with a single line. Growth isn't about revenge, it's about mastering the silence. And with that, the story that began as public humiliation ended as quiet closure, engineered, mixed, and faded out on my own terms. 6 months after that session with Ethan, I was standing in the same recording booth, only this time the plaque on the wall had my name on it. Lead sound engineer, Susie Tran. I ran my fingers over the engraved letters, still half disbelieving it was real. The label had extended my contract indefinitely. My mixes were charting on indie playlists. My email was full of requests from new artists, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was chasing validation. It was chasing me. Outside, the Seattle rain tapped against the windows like an applause only I could hear. I didn't crave the loud kind anymore. The interview. A local music blog reached out for an interview. The journalist, a soft-spoken guy named Reed, asked me questions about my process, my influences, my sudden rise. Then, inevitably, was there a defining moment that changed your direction, a turning point? I thought about it for a long second before answering. There was a moment I realized silence can be louder than revenge, I said. That leaving someone's version of you behind doesn't mean losing yourself. Sometimes the best way to reclaim your voice is to stop explaining it. He typed that out slowly, nodding. That's beautiful. I smiled. It's true. The song that closed the loop. Weeks later, Ethan's song, the one I'd helped produce, released under Stonebridge's smaller label. It didn't blow up. It didn't crash either. It just existed quietly, like a confession whispered too late. But tucked deep in the credits, below the line for vocal engineering, was my name. People online noticed. "The same Susie Tran who worked on Jace Martinelli's breakout track," one comment read. "She's everywhere lately." Ethan never mentioned me in his promotions, and I didn't expect him to. He was still chasing peace, just like I had once done, and maybe that was enough. The unexpected message. One evening, as I was packing up after a long session, Nora peeked her head into the booth. "You've got mail, old-fashioned kind." It was a handwritten note on thick paper, no name, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. "You were right. Growth isn't about revenge. It's about mastering silence. I'm trying. Thank you for not destroying me when you could have. E." I folded it neatly and placed it in the drawer under the console, where I kept things that once hurt but no longer owned me. That's the thing about closure. It doesn't always come as a dramatic apology. Sometimes it's just acknowledgement wrapped in paper, delivered when you no longer need it. The festival. 3 months later, Stonebridge got invited to a regional music festival. I was asked to run live sound for one of the smaller stages, Poetic Symmetry, considering how it all began. The first time Ethan and I met, it was at a festival like this, back when I was still learning how to mix, and he was chasing followers. That memory no longer stung. It felt distant, like watching a film you've already outgrown. When I took my place behind the soundboard, the crowd roared for an artist I'd helped produce. The lights shifted, the bass thrummed, and for a moment, I let myself breathe it all in. The noise, the pulse, the beauty of being part of something bigger than pain. It hit me then. This was the revenge I never needed to plan. This was the life that bloomed quietly when I stopped watering what had already died. The last scene. After the show, I walked back through the damp streets of downtown Seattle. The air smelled like rain and fried food and beginnings. Neon signs reflected off puddles and fractured pinks and blues. I passed a street performer, singing a soft acoustic version of Jace Martinelli's What You Said, the song that had started it all. The sound was raw and honest, stripped of production, but I could still hear my fingerprints in it. I dropped a few dollars in his case. He looked up and said, "You look like someone who knows how to listen." I smiled. That's the job. When I got home, I opened my balcony door, let the night air pour in, and played through my latest mix. The waveform danced across the screen like a heartbeat that had finally found its rhythm. In the glow of my monitors, I whispered to myself, not as an engineer, not as someone who'd been humiliated or wronged, but as someone who had finally rewritten her story. Sometimes the universe doesn't punish the people who hurt you. It just puts you in rooms they'll never be invited to again. I saved the file, titled it Integrity Wive, and leaned back as the rain softened outside. Somewhere out there, someone was probably scrolling, posting, performing. But me? I was done performing for anyone but myself. I didn't need applause. I had peace. And in the end, that was the real viral moment, the one no algorithm could touch.